idea that there is someone to learn something comes out of the ignorance of the mind. Basically, really, what happens is that we are born in timeless being, and then there comes a moment of separation. And in that moment of separation, there is a sense of seeking. Seeking comes straight out of the idea of separation, that one moment when suddenly the I thought arises and the sense that there's a separate individual arises. From that moment onwards, there always is a sense of something that's missing, something that is not whole anymore. There seems to be some sort of secret we can't get hold of. So we grow up and we try to console ourselves with the sense of loss that we have. When we're children, we are taught to become good children. When we go to school, we're taught to become good students. When we grow up, we're taught and we have to learn to become good in business or whatever. This is a very simplistic view, obviously. So all the time, we are being given lists of things to do in order to become something. And when we maybe marry or live with somebody, we have to become good lovers, good husbands, good wives, whatever. All the time, everything that's happening is about us becoming something. And somewhere there's a sense that something is missing in all of that. None of that, for many of us, fulfills this sense of bereftness. And so then some of us, with that sense of loss, look in different places. Religion is one of them. Although these days there's such a great intelligence around, there isn't the sense that religion can fulfill that longing. And then for other people, there maybe therapy could be the answer. And so we get another list, and we get another teaching, which is about becoming something. It's all directed towards the individual. And the message is that the individual needs to become something else. And for some of us, therapy somehow also doesn't fulfill this longing. And so we then move to something that we have heard about called enlightenment. And we go to teachers, we get another list, meditation, whatever it is, mantras, feeling the presence, whatever that list is, somewhere it's directed towards the individual. You have the choice to become whatever it is that the teacher is teaching you to become. And all of this goes on reinforcing the sense that there is an individual who is separate, who can choose to become something and fulfill that sense of loss. And basically all of that comes out of an ignorance about the nature of awakening. All teaching about becoming is a teaching of imprisonment. Teaching about becoming reinforces the sense that there is an individual who needs to learn. But awakening is totally beyond the need to learn anything. Awakening, liberation, is totally beyond understanding. It's totally beyond the idea that there is anyone there that needs to change or become something. Liberation is totally beyond any sense that has anything to do with the individual. In fact, awakening is the absence of individuality. Awakening is the dropping of the illusion of separation. And when the idea of separation falls away, there is the oneness, which is indescribable. No one has ever been able to express the sense of oneness that arises when the seeking ends. And what also is seen is that there was no one ever who needed to become anything for liberation to arise. So actually, awakening, liberation, is a total change of perception. It's utterly simple, and it's also very difficult. The difficulty is dropping the idea that there is an individual who can find that. We are so entrenched in the idea that effort brings about results, that when we come to discover that which fulfills, that which is whole, we still apply the idea that in some way or other we have to do it. The difficulty is the idea that we have to do it. When we drop away, when the idea of individuality drops away, there is that which always is. There is that which never changes. There is that which has never come and never goes away. In fact, all of our effort to meditate or to self-inquire or to become still, all of that effort that we make to become this is watched by that which we long for. The beloved sits on our shoulders and watches us search for the beloved. So what we're talking about here is a mystery which is totally beyond comprehension. It's a mystery that we can never understand our way to. We can't work it out. We can't creep up on what we are, on what already is. It's not possible. Advaita, non-dualism, is that there is no one. It completely eradicates the idea, makes a nonsense of the idea of subject and object, the subject you reaching an object called enlightenment. What I hear still is this teaching which is presuming there is such a thing as individual choice, presuming there is such a thing as becoming, presuming there is someone there that can choose to be open to presence. And it goes on reinforcing the seeker and the sought. And it isn't, what I'm saying is not that there's nothing you can do or there's something you can do. What is being expressed here is that there is no one. That there is no one sitting in this hall. This is being arising in the form of apparent people. There is simply being happening. Sitting in this room is happening to no one. And somewhere behind all the ideas that we have about enlightenment or spiritual growth, there is something silent and still that watches all of that happen, that allows that to happen. Even now, as you sit here and see this, it is not you that sees this. It isn't the individual that sees this. What sees this is being. Seeing is simply happening. There is no one that's seeing. It's utterly simple and immediate. This is how it is. This is all there is. Simply this. It's really in a way, all of these meetings that we have, I have them in Europe and so on, all of these meetings is like waves in the ocean that are looking for something, looking for the ocean. And they hear about a meeting, so let's all gather together, because there are wise men there who will tell us where the ocean is. And waves are just the ocean waving. So if there's any waves out there that would like to ask anything.
You mentioned the yes but questions. You know, I've just read your book and heard tapes, but my mind always says, yes, but how does the little wave know that it is one? In other words, it's just a yes but question.
Yes, it does. Yes,
a how-to kind of question.
Okay, so it never does. So you will never become enlightened. So I'm not enlightened. This isn't enlightened. There's no such thing as an enlightened person who knows the ocean. When the looking for the ocean ceases, there is the ocean. And no one knows that. All the time there is a seeker looking for the ocean, there's a seeker looking for the ocean. When the seeking falls away, there is the ocean.
Well, and so then my mind says, so how does the seeking, it seems like that seeking is just so insistent to get somewhere by something and want somebody to tell me something.
So the seeker can't stop seeking. So let's be clear about this. What is being spoken about here is not stop seeking, because that's another doing. There's no one that can stop seeking, and there's no one. It's impossible. This is a message without any hope at all. And you've paid money for it.
That was my wife, and I tell her it's hopeless. And that there is no way to become
That which already is.
That's right.
This is it. How can anybody become it?
But shopping is hard to get rid of. In
Shopping?
Ladies. Yes, shopping.
Yes, I've noticed that too. Yeah.
Yes.
We've been out worshipping shops most of this weekend, actually.
Yeah. And when you say there's nobody here, and I think last time you were here you said when you go in the hall and into the bookstore, that's when that appears. And could you go into that a little more, even though we are what is appearing?
Well, whatever is arising is the total invitation to see that there is only oneness. In other words, there's no such thing as grace descending when that which it descends upon becomes worthy. That's just nonsense. We actually live totally in grace. At this moment, the beloved is singing the song of love to us in every way it can, through every sense. Everybody sitting in this room is sitting on the beloved.
Okay.
When you walk out of here, when you walk up there, it's the beloved through the senses is saying to you, look, there is only oneness.
Yeah.
So there's nowhere where oneness isn't speaking or inviting the seeker to see that there's nothing to find. It's as simple as that. Whatever is as it is. So there's nothing to find.
Right.
Already there is only oneness. Already there is only being.
Right, yeah. I agree.
But in some way or other, what's interesting is that this very uncompromising, radical message is being communicated here and in a few other places. And in some way or other, what's now happening is that the mind is coming to these sort of meetings and in the end giving up. It gives up. And when the mind gives up, because it can't get anywhere with this situation, then something else arises. Yeah. That's why, up until recently, enlightenment has seemed to be a rare occurrence. Now, at this time, awakenings and liberation are happening more and more, simply because this sort of message is about total anarchy. This message is there are no leaders, there are no wise men, there are no teachers, there are no fathers and mothers. All there is this. Yeah. And somewhere, everybody in this room absolutely knows that.
Right.
But what overlays that is the mind that thinks it can understand this.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Tony. It does seem valuable to have come here today and heard you speak as you just spoke. So the implication of what you say is that there's some kind of silliness about this.
Silliness?
Silliness, yeah.
Oh, it's sort of crazy, yes. But it's being crazy.
Well, what I'm saying is that I think if we hadn't come together, we wouldn't have heard you just now and been enriched by that, even though there's no individual here. So I know,
but nobody chose to come here. Nobody, there isn't anybody here who chose to come here. It just happened. And there isn't anybody that chose not to come here. There isn't anyone that chooses. There has never been a choice. There's been the appearance of a choice. There seems to be in the thing that we call the world, like the apparent past and what seems to be the apparent future, the sense that there is someone always choosing and doing. That's the dream. The dream is the hypnotic dream of the idea that there's an individual there who chose to come here and therefore benefit from this. I mean, there are many people in this room that won't ever hear this at this point. Maybe somewhere else they'll hear it. But if there's a readiness to hear it, it'll be heard. If there isn't, it won't be heard. So being here is not necessarily any more beneficial than being anywhere else in terms of this.
Well, one more question. Then how did I get here? I mean, how does anything happen?
But you aren't here. There is no one here. There's a body mind that is standing there. There's a divine puppet standing there. This is the divine, you are the divine expression standing there, but there is no individual. There is no individual volition to stand there or be here. It simply is what is. This is it. All there is this.
Okay.
This is a real conversation stopper in a way. I did say to Claire, this might all be over in 20 minutes.
Hello, Tony. I want to ask essentially the same question yet again. In terms of the yearning of the heart and the practice of devotion and how that relates to essentially the abiding in the presence. Because I understand this idea that it cannot be found by seeking. In fact, the Sufis have an expression that one of the Sufis said, God has never been found by seeking. But then they also say that no one who has ever found him didn't seek after God.
Yes.
So there's this question about the longing of the heart and the yearning and how that relates to this practice of waking up. In other words, Rumi, for example, who said that the longing of the heart is the connection to the divine, and to seek not, he says to seek more thirst rather than quenching. Seek more thirst, that thirst for God. And he says, don't seek for the quenching, seek for more thirsting. That's another seeking. Right. And so that's my question. Was Rumi wrong? Oh, absolutely. So I should throw out all my Rumi books now?
Sorry, there is no Rumi. But there is a teaching that is expressed through that body mind.
I hear
Another
that.
divine puppet. Now, that teaching, the teaching that there is someone there that can choose to seek whatever is being suggested can be sought, is an ignorance. Of course it's an ignorance. There is no one. That's the whole point of liberation. That's the whole realization of the liberation.
And all of those people who are longing in the heart haven't yet realized that?
There isn't anyone in the whole of this apparent world who isn't longing. Directly the moment of separation arises, every individual in the world longs for oneness. It just isn't obviously recognized in that way. But all desire is the desire to come home. All desire is the longing to come home. So there isn't anybody out there that isn't a seeker. There's nothing special or holy or worthy about seeking this. It's just another way of getting something.
But I guess my question is, it sounds to me like longing is not a viable practice because it presumes that you're separate already. And yet, a number of the great mystics say it is the intensity of the longing that does all the work. So that's my question. Is there...
Okay, so there's a teaching that is unless you feel as though you could throw yourself off a cliff for enlightenment, then it won't happen. So you have a lot of people walking around looking as though they're going to throw themselves off cliffs. Now, another teaching that's around is that actually not caring is the secret. So I've heard of quite a lot of people that, for instance, go to Bombay looking as though they're not caring. And they go and they say, "Can I have a front seat?" It's the point that what goes on is that we individualize this or personalize it. Longing happens, of course longing happens, but there is no one that can do anything about that longing. What the mind does is it gets hold of that longing and turns it into a search for an object that is longed for. That's the difficulty. That's the struggle. There's the treadmill. You're back on the treadmill of trying to get or find an object that is somewhere else. There isn't anything that's somewhere else. This is all there is.
Right, but if the longing has integrity, it'll burn through all of that obscuration of the mind, wouldn't it? I mean, Adyashanti today said that all he cared about was enlightenment. He had to know when he was 19 years old. I don't think his experience subsequent to that would have happened if he hadn't had that incredible, deep desire to know, that yearning. So all I'm saying is that depth of yearning seems fundamental.
For some people and for others not. There are many people that have awoken without even being able to spell the word enlightenment. You know, what happened with Adyashanti happened with Adyashanti. That is what arose. What is arising right at this moment is that that is standing there. And it's interesting that that divine puppet is standing there, hearing that there is nothing that can be done. It's all over. There is no one. Isn't that wonderful? It's all over.
That's great. That's what I needed to hear. Thank you.
Hi.
Yeah.
I sat down. I came up to talk and then sat down because of the seriousness of that question. And then I sat down and realized that my question is also serious.
Serious?
Serious.
Oh.
Why? So I got back up.
So, do I need to look serious as well?
Why do you shop for shoes if you can't choose?
Why
do you shop for shoes if you're not choosing?
Why do I shop for shoes?
And I'm asking, the serious part of that is truly trying to get into your world. I think I understand the idea.
Yeah, okay, so you never will get into my world because I don't have a world. I don't have a life. There's nobody here. There's nothing here. There's nobody here living a life. There's nobody that goes to buy shoes. Buying shoes and choosing shoes simply happens. And funnily enough, that's what exactly happens everywhere else. It's the thing that overlays that is the idea that you're out there buying them. There's no one that's ever bought any shoes.
Hi, Tony. And now I have another question based on that. Don't divine puppets buy shoes?
Don't buy puppets.
No, divine puppets. Don't divine puppets buy shoes?
Well, they appear to, but the hypnotic dream or the idea is that the puppet thinks it's a person and that it thinks it has its own volition, that it can bring about things or create things or find something that's over there or over there, be it shoes or enlightenment. That's the dream.
Okay, but as a divine puppet, I mean, I'm not choosing the shoes, but they're being bought by this body and mind. Like I'm not choosing the shoes, but it seems to me they're being bought by this body and mind.
That's what appears to be happening, yes.
Right, okay. Okay.
I'm now going to deliver the next bombshell. Although it appears to be happening, in reality, nothing is happening. no thing is happening. This is no thing happening. It's fun, isn't it?
It makes no sense.
No, oh, absolutely not.
Yeah.
This is absolutely not about anything sensible. We're talking here about a total mystery, which is beyond comprehension. So minds in this room are really either trying to sort this out or are trying to dismiss it totally. Many people will walk out of here and dismiss this totally because the mind really doesn't like this. This is the frightening bit for the mind.
Well,
the mind loves all the ideas of being in presence and meditating and being still and being open and dropping masks. That's something that you think you can do.
Right. I'd like to ask another question, if I may. Willingness.
Willingness.
So you said something about if there's a willingness for it to be heard. I thought I heard you say that.
No, I don't think you did. You've got the wrong book there. That's somebody else.
Like who? It occurs to me who's got the willingness, or who's,
No one.
I get that. It's like who's making the choice.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Tony. It seems to me that there should actually be nothing to this.
Well, you can sit down now.
Yeah. I mean, really, if there's only awareness, if there's only oneness, then that's all there is. And perhaps if you're very, very slow, you might have to see
You won't
I'm
ever
at a
see.
loss for words, too.
You won't ever see.
Yeah.
You can never see this.
Yeah.
It is seen. Actually, really, seeing is happening there, but you think you are seeing. You think you're seeing this.
Yeah.
Seeing is simply happening. There is seeing. There is hearing. It's happening, but it's happening to no one. There is no one in this room who is seeing or hearing this.
How does it happen that there could be seeing, apparent seeing by no one, that this background illumination, this clarity, how does that happen?
It just happens. It simply happens. All that's happening here is confusion is meeting clarity. It's nothing to do with this. There is simply clarity. And clarity meets confusion. All you're doing is speaking to yourself. What you're doing is talking to yourself. Mm-hmm. Behind that confusion is utter clarity. Sitting in this room, there is utter clarity, the knowing that all there is this. But overlaying that, or trying to get in the way of that, is the idea that you don't get it. Mm-hmm. The only thing different about you and me is that you think you don't get it. The only other difference between you and me is there's no one here, and there apparently is someone there. Mm-hmm. You own something. I've lost everything.
Yeah.
You own something called you. That's all. It's simply an illusion that drops away, and there is this.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing as we speak that I'll stop in a sec, that the mind is wasting its time and everyone else's time.
Well, the mind is being
Really?
minding. The mind is oneness minding.
Uh-huh.
It's the game. The oneness loves the game of looking for itself. Have you noticed?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah.
It's around everywhere. Oneness is looking for itself. And it has the fun of confusing itself in order that... It's like God playing hide and seek, and he plays it so well that he can't find himself. But it doesn't matter, because being asleep and being awake are the same thing. It is simply being. How the whole mind's idea is that we must be awake, I must be awake. But who can be awake? Being asleep and being awake are the same thing.
Thank you, Tony.
So you're saying anything that apparently goes through this mind?
As far as the thinking mind is concerned, to do with awakening or liberation, it is totally and utterly irrelevant. It has there is simply no connection in that sense.
How about something practical?
Oh yeah, we can put doors in walls and make risotto. This is the creative mind. This is the practical mind.
Okay, so then
But
everything...
the dreaming mind goes on dreaming and only lives in the story. The dreaming mind lives in the story. What we hear when people come together and talk about this sort of thing is actually a story in the mind. That there is something out there called presence or oneness, which you can attain or which can be attained.
Okay.
It's a story.
Okay, so everything else is a joke, kind of.
It's a story.
Okay. All right.
Hello, Tony. I've had a bit of a conflict since this conference began, and it arose when I look around. I'm realizing I'm not the only grandfather here.
Not the only grandfather, yeah.
There's many, many of us here today who experienced the 60s and the 70s. And part of my conflict is wondering, the people that are sharing their wisdom, where are the young people? Are we sharing this at another time with younger people?
Well, come to Dublin.
Or are we just sharing
Come to
it amongst
Dublin.
ourselves?
There are teenagers in Dublin listening to this. There's even a 19-year-old who has already awakened in Dublin.
I'm very happy
There's
to
a
hear
lot
that.
of young people who are now hearing this because it has to do with anarchy. It has to do with the dropping of authority. That's what's happening in the reflection of the world. In the world we see at the moment, what is arising in different forms is anarchy. And in some way or other, that's reflected in the search for this, because already people are beginning to realize they don't need teachers. They don't need anyone. There aren't any beginners out there who need to learn and walk up the stair to the higher level. This is what's being recognized, and young people are recognizing this. The whole idea of authority has fallen away religiously, politically. In many, many ways, young people are seeing that authority is standing on sand. And so there's a sense already that there's something else that's beyond having to learn anything from anyone else.
As I was listening to you speak, I've actually raised 5 young children myself, and I was beginning to think of some of the discussions that we had, me as the parent, them as, and I was beginning to think it was a good thing that they hadn't listened to you.
Yeah.
It would have made my job maybe more difficult, and then I realized that no, it would have made it so much easier.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Okay.
Hi, Tony.
Hiya.
I'm starting to wonder, is there individual experience?
Yes, oh yes. In the way I use words, experience is a personal happening. It's something that happens for the apparent individual. The apparent individual goes around believing that what is happening is an experience for that individual. So it goes on reinforcing the idea that there is someone there having experience.
Yes.
Well, after awakening, after liberation,
Yes.
things go on happening in exactly the same way as they did before, for no one.
For no one. But you continue to experience.
Experience, if you like, happens, although I don't use it in that way anymore.
Yes.
After a liberation, life happens. This and that is simply life happening.
Right.
There
right,
isn't anyone
right.
that life is happening to.
Right.
So anger, frustration, boredom, excitement, all of those things go on occurring for no one. That's
Yes.
what humiliation means. Humiliation doesn't mean that you are less than someone else. Humiliation actually means there's no one.
Yes, yes, yes. Well, I'm left kind of thinking that I don't know how to say it, but the idea is to just be with experience in
Try
the
it.
moment.
But who's going to do that?
Not that I can, but, you know,
That's
but,
the whole point. Who's
Yeah.
going to do that?
yeah, and I
But
realize I
something
can't
there-
make myself, but
Yeah. But something there behind the mind hears and knows this absolutely.
yes.
So there are many people that will walk out of this room hearing this somewhere behind the mind, and suddenly what will arise is the realization that there is no one. It can be momentary at first, but that is the awakening. There is no one. All there is this.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you.
I want to follow up on her question. Tony, do you sometimes forget that you're no one and think you're someone? I mean, do you move in and out of this?
Yes, certainly when awakening. For me, there's a period of awakening that seems to happen in time. It's simply the embodiment of the new perception that there is only oneness. Then there comes a point when there's no longer a sense of me anymore. So me and being meet each other and marry. And in that marriage, when all that's left is liberation, then there is no one, there is nothing but life happening.
I'm not sure if I got my question across. If you sort of taken that leap and you've realized you're no one, and then maybe you wake up the next day and for a few hours you think you're someone again.
Yeah.
I mean, did I get that across?
Yeah, that's what happens usually. Yeah.
Yeah.
In seeing there is oneness, there's a totally new perception that's arisen. Then the me comes back to report on that and try and do something about it maybe. But that's happening less and less now. But me and being meet each other in this awakening period, which seems to happen in time. But in reality, meing simply evaporates in the being, and there is simply being, liberation.
So sort of as you get more practice and you live in it more.
Well, yes, you do, but there's no one that can do anything about that. The difficulty up until recently has been the idea that somehow meing or the ego coming back is wrong in some way.
Yeah, I didn't think that exactly. I just wondered if, you know, you occasionally get tricked or trick yourself, and then you go back to realizing what really is. And
well, nobody realizes what really is. When there is nobody, it is realized what really is.
Yeah.
Let's be clear about that. You will never become enlightened.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Hello?
Hiya.
Hi. When you said that seeing just happens, seeing happens, and that's seeing without something to be seen or someone to see, then my question was, then what is seeing? But then later you said something about experience. You used to say experience happens, but now you say life happens. Would that seeing be in that?
Well, yes, but in the end, there isn't anyone that sees that. You know, liberation isn't about being aware or being present.
I understand that.
It isn't about subject-object. It isn't about something happening here that sees presence or sees one. Liberation is there's nothing left. There's nothing.
Including
there's nothing.
seeing.
Well, seeing happens. There's nothing and everything happens in that. There's nothing and everything here. Nothing and everything. Seeing life happening happens, but it happens in nothing. This is a mystery. You'll never get this.
Then why are you saying it?
There's no one here saying it.
Oh, okay. So seeing happens.
Life happens. Have you noticed? Life is happening.
Well, yeah, that's
you
what
think it's happening to you. Life is simply happening.
Right.
You know, that you're not standing there. Standing there is happening to the divine puppet.
Okay, and that was my question, is seeing happens is part of life happens. Not to
Well,
me,
it-
to you, that I'm living, none of that, but it's all part of that dance or movement or isness.
Yeah. And it's
Thanks.
happening to no one.
Yeah, okay.
Hi,
Hiya.
Donnie. My question is, who are you?
Who am I? I am all that is. You are all that is. There is only all that is.
In your book, you described a experience as being infused with loving kindness.
Oh, did I?
Was
Are you sure
there-
you're reading my book? Let's be clear
There
about
was
this.
loving-
Liberation has nothing to do with goodness
Oh, okay.
or loving kindness. No, not at all. None of those dualistic ideas arise anymore. This is the mind getting some sort of picture of what it's like to be enlightened. You know, the loving, beautiful, slow-moving, slow-talking, wise person that is very, very simple and listens to vegetarian music. It's a nice story, but it's meaningless. It's bullshit. So,
In recognizing what is, how is that going to relieve pain and suffering?
no, it doesn't. Pain and suffering arises for no one. There is no one in the world that actually is suffering or in pain. But all the time there's an illusion of individuality, then the individual believes that suffering is happening to them. That's the dream. Liberation is the realization that there's no one that anything is happening to. Things just happen.
And death?
No one dies. Who dies? Who's born? There's no one. There's no one standing there, so who's going to die? What ceases, apparently in the manifestation, in the dream, what ceases to exist there is a body-mind. At that point, there is oneness. Death, in that sense, is the end of an apparent story, which is a search for oneness. When the story ends, there is oneness. But in fact, throughout the whole story, there is only oneness, only being. There's just someone there who thinks that they're in a body that's looking for being. It is being pretending to be a seeker. Everybody in this room is simply pretending to be a seeker.
Thank you.
What I hear you say is that there's nobody here, I'm not a person, all is one. That seems like an amazingly direct statement. I feel like I'm here, my heart is beating.
The heart's there, the body's there. But who is the one? Where's the individual? Close your eyes right now. Anybody in this room can do that. Close your eyes and look for you. Look for the one. Look for the separate individual. Now, what is arising is sensation, is life, noise, heat in the body, whatever. There is no one in there that that's happening to. What is looking for one is one. What has closed its eyes and is looking for the individual is already oneness. You don't have to go anywhere to find it. You don't have to go and do anything. You don't have to go and meditate. You don't have to go and climb a mountain. You don't have to do anything. There is that which sees, that which knows. For everyone in this room, that which knows knows they are sitting there listening to this. It is the knowing. It is the one that...
It sounds so amazingly simple.
Too simple? The mind, it's not really, it can't be just as simple as that, surely. It has to be very complicated. There had to be all sorts of levels of enlightenment and levels of approaching it. The mind hates this because it is utterly simple. Of course it's utterly simple. The kingdom of heaven is like a mustard seed. Totally simple and ordinary. It's no big deal. Awakenings are happening a great deal in Europe in hearing this. And a lot that comes back is it's no big deal. It's utterly obvious. All my life I've looked for this and I realize it always was this.
Thank you.
Is there any reason to make an effort to be kind?
Who makes the effort?
No one.
But effort arises.
Yes?
It's fine. Effort arises for no one. Come to see there's no one standing there. Come to see there's nobody who's ever made an effort. There's nobody who can make an effort right now. Effort happens.
Yes.
But all the time there's an idea that somebody can make an effort to achieve something, then there will be somebody there making an effort to achieve something.
So if I walk out of the hall and there's someone injured, and there appears to be a choice to help this person or not, an illusion, this choice, but it appears to be a choice. Does it matter which choice I
Not
make?
at all. Nothing matters. Nothing matters. All is simply the expression of being. All is the divine expression. There's not one thing that's better than another. All there is this. Thank you.
Hi.
Oh, yeah.
Part of me that isn't here wanted to say, I understand, but what I really wanted to say was just, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Tony. Your message seems to be an invalidation of all spiritual traditions and religions.
Next question.
Well, I find that my mind is rebelling and my mind doesn't like this.
No.
Yeah. So the question is, if there's no one to wake up and there's nothing to do, then what are we doing here?
Nothing.
Nothing.
You can't get it wrong and you can't get it right. Whatever is happening is happening. It simply is this. That's the end of the search. It's all over. I mean, I know Matthew won't like me saying this, but you never need to go out there and buy another book. It's all over. What's the point of reading about something when reading it is the being? Being is reading a book about being.
But from my perspective, in the dream, there seems to be a difference between us. That's my perspective in the dream.
Sure. It is either seen or it isn't seen. And all the time it isn't seen, then there seems to be a difference. Yeah. But not seeing is being not seeing. So both are the same.
Not seeing is being.
Not seeing. Being asleep and being awake are the same. It's just in the mind that we think there's a difference. We think one is better than the other. They are both the divine expression.
But that's from the perspective of being awake. In the dream, it looks different.
Yeah. Hard luck.
What's that? Hard luck?
Hard luck.
Hard luck. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Hello. From the moment you started talking, there seems to be an experience of utter delight with nothing else. Utter delight. It's just totally delightful, and there's nothing else. In my dream, in my story, most of my friends are therapists, and all they do is really tell me what's wrong with me and make suggestions how I could change. That's completely irrelevant, isn't it?
Oh, totally. It's just another reinforcement of the idea that there's somebody there that can become something, like, and forgive their mother, and, you know, and heal the wounded. Have you got Heal the Wounded Child yet? Have you got that?
That was about 10 years ago.
Oh, right. It's just not. It's just the mind. It's just a longing for something that's totally beyond the idea of you and you becoming something. All of that is just a reflect or an attempt to express something that's beyond.
And this delightfulness seems to be so present and just appearing.
This is the delight that you are.
Yes. There's no choice in being present. You know, you hear the word mentioned as if it's a volitional kind of thing, but that's absolutely ridiculous.
Oh no, totally and utterly. Presence, oneness, being is totally beyond anything to do with you.
Yes.
Totally beyond any idea that anyone can be or be in presence. When there is no one.
It's absolutely joyful. Thank you.
Hi. Sometimes in sporting events, you'll see, can you hear me? Sometimes in sporting events, you'll see the winning team will say, you know, God heard our prayers, and we won.
Yes.
So if consciousness is the grand puppet master actually moving around every player on the field from both teams in every sporting event in the world, and buying and selling every stock, and, you know, selling all the popcorn and the soda in every movie theater, et cetera, would you say that consciousness is a bit of an overachiever?
Yes, well, especially when it comes to achieving enlightenment, absolutely. Consciousness is the utterly still, impersonal silence out of which itself arises. And in that arising is competition and success and being enlightened or becoming enlightened and all that nonsense. It's oneness playing the game of looking for itself and pretending that it can find itself. It's all about what you see in the world is this personal endeavor. It's all about personal endeavor. It's all about the person finding something, achieving something. There's nothing to achieve except the realization that there's nothing to achieve. You are already wholeness. This is wholeness.
Tony, when I first read your book, I kind of had two reactions. One was I became kind of profoundly depressed.
Yes.
And then the other reaction was to laugh till I cried.
Yes.
It's in one sense, it's like tremendously funny. And in the other sense, because you have to surrender what you've always kind of cherished, you feel profoundly depressed at first.
Yes.
Could you talk a little bit about the sense? Do you get the sense of the holy, the divineness about all of this? I mean, we're doing a lot of laughing, and that's wonderful, but I mean, do you have that sense that it's a divine thing and a powerful thing and a holy thing?
No, not at all, no.
No.
It's totally beyond the idea of holiness or divinity, all those ideas that we have. The difficulty with the mind is it sets up a picture of what enlightenment is like. It's a wonderful picture. I mean, you know, you can join the Enlightenment Club when this happens. When you join the Enlightenment Club and people, your friends hear about it, they come to you and they say, I hear you're enlightened. And you say, yes, I am. And then they say, well, you know, we have some friends next week in the evening. Can you? Yes, I'll speak to them. And you go and speak to these friends, you know, and they think it's wonderful, and actually so do you, really. It's quite a thrill. And then some more people come to the room, to the house, and more people come, and you're speaking to them, and it's just a wonderful feeling of. And then this friend of yours says, well, look, the room isn't big enough. Maybe we should go to a bigger hall, you know. And you say, yes, okay, let's go and we get a big hall. And then you say to this guy who's organizing this, well, actually, the hall is okay, but there's lots of people in it, and they can't really see me, so I ought to have a platform. And that's the Enlightenment Club.
It feels very risky to be up here. And it feels to me like that's how it would be to live how you're living. It would feel so risky every second. And so let's imagine that some of what has happened to you or the non-you happens to people here. When they go out of the door, do they go home and still be a doctor or teacher? Absolutely. Or are they all going to have to be spiritual teachers? Or
No, invariably people just go on with what's happening already. This is happening a great deal now, and people in most cases are going on with what happened before. There are 2 or 3 people who have come out of this who are now communicating this. Fortunately, there aren't that many, because I'm a bit worried about my job, you know. Most people don't.
So if I'm interested in saving the virgin forests and eating healthy and sustainable living,
yeah.
Whatever I was interested in before, I'll still be interested in.
You could be.
Or will that change?
You could be. But the only thing that can happen, like this guy over here who's talking about being depressed, is that what can happen initially is the realization that your life is totally meaningless. The idea that somewhere that you can make something of your life and make it work falls away.
I think I've been through a lot of that already.
Yeah. And then what arises is this awakening, and then what arises out of that is the total celebration of life by no one. So that the work that you did before possibly could go on being done, but it would just be a celebration instead of an obligation or a need to find something. We are driven by the longing to find oneness, and everything we do is towards that. So that falls away.
So if I have an issue with anger or whatever, I may go to some workshop still and learn how to deal with my anger. And,
absolutely.
I mean, like my problems won't just fall away.
Well, no, it isn't your problems that will fall away.
Right.
That which believed it had problems will fall away. There is no one who's angry.
Right.
So anger simply still arises.
Then the mechanism of anger
but for no
may
one.
come through. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Hi, Tony. My name's Bill. I want to get something straight here.
It's big.
So there's these experiences of deep, profound realization and sense of self.
No, that isn't an experience.
So in reality,
the seeing of oneness is not a personal thing. It simply happens. When there is no person, there is the seeing of oneness, you could say in simple terms. It doesn't happen to anyone.
So in reality, it's like this deep, profound experience of nothing?
Nothing, yes.
Because self doesn't exist.
It appears. It's something that appears in the dream, the individual. When there is no individual, there is oneness. Of course, there already is only oneness anyway, pretending to be an individual looking for oneness.
Got it.
Hey, Tony. You were talking about anger doesn't happen in reference to with anybody. There's nobody to be angry. Do emotions like anger, longing, fear, do they happen in reference to anything, or do they just...
They can happen within the appearance of what, what is going on, of course. Okay. That just simply goes on as it did before, but for no one.
If you say that life is meaningless and that there's no one really there, could you talk a little bit about calamitous events like 9/11? Do you see that as really happening? And
here, it appears in the manifestation. 9/11 happens.
And does it have any significance?
None at all.
What is the mind that you're referring to?
The mind is one minding. The mind is actually simply thoughts that arise. So a thought arises, then a thought arises, then a thought. There is no such thing. We tend to turn the mind into some sort of thing on its own, which has its own volition. There's simply a stopping and looking at the mind, and I'm not suggesting you do this because we're back into somebody doing it. But when stopping and seeing the mind happens, what is seen is a thought, and a thought, and a thought.
Happening.
Happening, apparently.
Hi, Tony. Is oneness just tormenting us?
You are oneness. There is, here we go again. Is oneness out there tormenting us? The oneness is torment. Torment is oneness. Oneness stands there saying, is oneness tormenting me? You are oneness. There is only oneness. It's chewing gum. It's standing laughing.
Sometimes it seems funny, and sometimes it just seems crazy.
Oh, to the mind, what is being said here is absolute craziness. It is absolute craziness.
Feels like there's nothing to stand on.
This is nothing arising as everything.
Thank you.
Hi, Tony.
Hi,
yeah. It occurs to me, I wanted to check this out. Could it be that dogs and cats have already got this point of view you're talking about?
All there is being, and being is catting, being is dogging, being is flowering, being is walling, being is stepping, being is Tony Parsoning.
Good, I have some models to follow now, thank you.
Okay. You're going to follow your cat from now on. I'll tell you what, your cat's a better teacher than most teachers.
Thank you.
Well, in order to avoid going off the deep end, some of us...
Going off where? The deep end?
Yeah.
Right.
Some of us, at least myself, think, well, is this individual telling me something that is totally unique, or have other people through history had the similar vision? How can we really verify that your orientation is valid?
No, you can't.
No way.
There's no individual here incidentally expressing this.
There's no what?
There's no individual here expressing this. This is nothing speaking to nothing.
Well, I hope to get something out of that. Do you have any words of reassurance? I mean,
No. I can't reassure. There's no hope.
No hope. Thanks.
Okay.
Hi, Tony. I just wanted to say that your book, this divine puppet or whatever this is, loved your book. And particularly the metaphor about how we're a character in a novel and we're not the author. And that made, there's just something about it that makes this life so much easier and so much joyful, more,
Yeah.
it made a big difference.
Yeah.
So or whatever. It's just...
Okay, I just want to be absolutely clear with you. There is no author.
I get that.
There
there's
is no
author.
destiny.
Right.
There's nothing out there writing this. There's nothing going anywhere. All there is this. But it's a freedom that to the mind is frightening because it's boundless. Somebody from America sent me an email. How dare you offer so much freedom? I'm angry with you, and isn't that ridiculous? It's a freedom that is frightening to the mind.
This body-mind likes it, seems
Right.
to like it, and gets freedom from it.
Yeah.
You know, so this whole exchange seems like kind of a tease to me, and it's funny, and
Yeah. Oh, it's very funny.
yeah, it's, and I'm lighter because of it, and just I'm grateful. I'm so grateful. So thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anything that this being can do to facilitate this realization? I'm afraid to ask this question.
It's lovely. Next question. That's the problem. That's the dream. That's the dream, that there is an individual who can do something. There's never been an individual who can do anything. Nothing has ever been done. Nothing is being done right now. And doing is simply happening. There's nobody in this room doing anything. There's nobody sitting here. All there is this. Life happening. So why would you need to do anything about it when already this is the case? Look, why do you need to do anything? It's being done. It's the divine, that is the divine expression. When you walk away from there, this is the divine expression. It doesn't need to be any better or worse. You don't have to walk away more slowly or more in a state of awareness or feeling every footstep to its minutest. Just, it's beautiful just as it is. That's the end. Bang. Whatever you think you've done in your life, you've never done. Everything that's happened in your life is divinely appropriate, has been divinely appropriate. And everything that you think you will do, in the dream, is also still divinely appropriate. And there's nowhere you can go to get away from oneness. There is only that.
Thank you. Oh, I have been so exhausted in this life searching for meaning.
Yeah, it wears you out.
This is such a great relief. I feel like tons have been just thank you.
You did it.
Is there any future?
No.
Thank you.
Hi, Tony.
Hi.
It's hard to formulate a question. You may have already talked about this, but because I went outside to make a phone call, no person went outside to talk to nobody. But did you talk about? Have you talked about in this song, this gathering, your series of awakenings that you had?
Can I talk about?
Have you talked about? Maybe I missed it, but can you talk about what brought you to this realization?
Or the dropping away of the idea that there was anyone there that could be awakened.
Mm-hmm. Could you talk about that? Or
No.
have you talked about that?
It just happens. There was somebody walking across a park who thought they could be awakened. Mm-hmm. And then the idea that they could be awakened fell away, and there was being, oneness, whatever you like, whatever word suits. Thereafter, there was still a moving out of being and meing, and there was still someone there with the idea that oneness could be attained, or there could be a preparation in this for that oneness to be more permanent. That was the divine misconception. And later on, apparently later on, there was the beginning of a communication of this in a book called The Open Secret. And as that book was being written by no one, there was a realization that there never had been anyone and that there was no one who could attain that which already is. So then there was what you would call a residing in oneness, but that is inexpressible.
Yeah.
There was nothing left but life was happening. The difficulty is that for many people there's an approach. An awakening can happen, and in the period of awakening, when there's still a personal sense of a person there, then there's an idea that enlightenment or liberation has happened, and people rush out and start giving satsangs when there's still a personal view from which that communication is happening. So what they're doing is they're teaching, because they think there is still a person there that happened to, because of, in a way, of what happened before, like meditation or whatever, then they go and speak to other apparent people and suggest to them or teach them that they can do the same thing, or they can attain enlightenment already attained here. So there's a lot of confusion still around about the idea that there is someone, a presumption that there is someone who can attain this.
I totally get this, but I just have to say all this doublespeak really pisses me off, because, it's like there's Advaita, there's no body, no thing, not one, not two, but one. I get that. That's an absolute truth. I get that. I've had this experience.
But you hardly ever hear it expressed anyway.
No, but you don't. But there's so many. But I think where people get lost and just looking around at hunger sometimes is like, is there a technique besides listening to the talk to just have this realization? Because not that you have to attain it, because we know that's it's not attainable, but sometimes just sitting in stillness, and no one seems to have the courage to talk about that. It's almost like, oops, better not say the M word, meditate. It's like, God,
no, because
have the courage.
But who is going to meditate?
Oh, come on, don't. I know.
No.
I mean, really.
The difficulty with this is apparent Advaita teachers talk about oneness. There is only oneness, there is not two-ness. And then go on talking to somebody about what they can do about finding that.
Exactly.
That is the divine misconception.
Yes. Except that there are people, they're sitting here listening, and everything's fine, but we're going to walk out here and say, fuck you to everybody in traffic.
Absolutely. But who's going to do that?
Oh, God. Okay.
What you're saying is that there's someone there who can choose to say fuck you to everyone.
I have no problem with
but
any of
there's
that.
no one there that can. If there's somebody there that can say fuck off to everybody, is there also somebody there that can find enlightenment? No. Neither can happen. There's no one.
I understand, but I have no problem with saying fuck you to anyone, but I have a problem with saying to the people that say afterwards, you shouldn't have done that. And that is a personal self coming in with a so-called,
Well, if you listen to that, then you're fascinated by the idea that there's someone there who can become someone who doesn't say fuck off.
And the technology, no.
Hey, if you and Toli and Leonard and some of the other people got together, do you think there would be the appearance of disagreement?
Do you think
there would be the appearance of disagreement?
Yes, but not with the person, with the teachings, and with the idea that there is anything that can be taught. Who's going to learn this, It's like teaching, it's like me standing here and saying to you, I'm going to teach you how to breathe, or to make the blood run around your body. It's ridiculous. Why, Advaita can't be taught. Advaita is being. There is oneness. How can anyone teach that?
Thanks.
This has been so interesting because you can see how this is just going to really irritate a lot of people.
Yes.
Because it pulls the rug out from under psychology, politics, religion, spirituality, everything.
In the idea that those things will bring you to this, yes, absolutely.
And because I always find when you even try to talk about it, you start to say something and then you realize you're just speaking from that. I mean, we're just so conditioned
Well,
with all
you're
those
speaking
things.
from the idea that there is someone with choice.
Yeah, I mean, it just drives. We're so driven by that, and it's interesting because some of the things that you say, the mind is literally just like stunned. It's stunned because it can't go there, and that's why you said it's a real conversation stopper.
Because it's beyond the mind.
Yeah. Well,
What
anyway.
you are is beyond the mind.
Well, this thing, anyway, this is great.
What's the distinction between what's apparent and what's real?
They're both the same thing. Apparently nothing is happening. Nothing is happening. This is the appearance of nothing happening. This is no thing happening.
There's no way to
this
prove
is no
it.
thing flowering. This is being flowering. Being is no thing and everything.
But so something is happening.
No, you think it's happening. The individual would think this is happening, that's happening, and that's happening. The individual sees this and puts it together as a photograph. It's one image, and the mind puts that image next to that one, and that one, and that one, and calls it a story. There's no story. There's nothing.
Yes, there may be no story, but to you, aren't those flowers blooming or sitting?
Those flowers are being flowering.
Right, so that's what's happening. Right?
No, it's what appears. When there is no one there, that will be seen.
When there's no one there?
That will be seen.
Oh, so as long as someone is present, that distinction is not available.
Apparent, yeah.
So,
but someone being there is being.
Being there, right? I understand. So, and there's nothing I can do about.
There is no one.
Okay, there's nothing.
And that's what happens.
Yeah.
That's what happens. The mind, when people go on hearing this, as obviously they do more in Europe and so on, because I speak to a lot of, the mind goes on saying, yeah, but what about, no, hold on, yeah, but what about, oh, fuck it.
So, as long as there is the sense of an individual being here, there is no hope of me seeing the distinction
Absolutely
between
none.
apparent and real.
None.
So I shouldn't even try to figure it out.
No.
That, how come he's saying nothing is happening when
Absolutely.
something is really happening?
Yeah.
So I just give that up.
Yeah. Well, no, you can't give it up either.
Well,
who's going to give it up?
Right. So until that gets given up, there is no hope of seeing.
None at all.
And there's nothing that can be done about it.
Nothing.
Okay.
Thank you.